Hey, you guys, Sean with Go Gloves here, and welcome back to episode 3 of my podcast, Spittin' Seeds. Today's guest is a baseball videographer, YouTuber, glove collector, and a man by the name of Chanterprise, Kevin Chan. How you doing, Kevin?
Good. How are you, Sean?
I'm doing great. Finally, glad to have you on after a little bit of a wait.
I know. Yeah. No, it's good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So I just want to have you on. I'm trying to have a vision for this podcast of like having people from the community on and just like having an audience that can see all these new people and kind of get familiar with them and have the people that come on tell their stories and spread the message that they want to spread. So kind of going into that, I want to know about like your story and as a baseball player, like how'd you get into baseball growing up and what was that like and kind of your progression from then until now. I know you're still playing a little bit, so just tell us about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess my baseball background is I've always played baseball. I guess started with t-ball, and then I stopped for a couple years, and then I picked baseball back up starting in about the 6th grade, so like middle schoolish, and pretty much played through Little League from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And then as soon as getting into high school, just playing ball there. Baseball was kind of the only sport that I was kind of allowed to play. Like basketball, my career was short-lived. I played in elementary school all of like 2 minutes into a season, and I was just like, okay, yeah, this is probably not going to work out for me.
Yep.
And then I wanted to play football, but then like my parents didn't want me to play because they didn't want to get like a phone call saying, hey, you got to be sent to the hospital.
Yeah.
Because I for anybody, for context wise, like I'm 5'6", I'm a pretty small guy, but
I'm about the
but I've
same,
always been
so.
quick. So yeah, so I've always been kind of quick, and and then baseball was just always kind of been my forte, and just loved it ever since. But I would say like I really wish that I had taken baseball as seriously as I do now back in like high school and whatnot. But again, no regrets for me. I think my timeline and my journey has led me up to where I am today, and it's been I can't complain. So, but with that said, got to college. I didn't get to play college ball. I played like in adult leagues, and pretty much ever since then, I've been playing like in weekend leagues and softball, and stuff with friends, and that's pretty much been my thing.
So like when you were growing up, was your goal to like make it in the big leagues? Because I think for a lot of people, that's like as a kid, that's like the goal. But for me, it was kind of different. So I don't know if it's the same for you or what was that like?
I would say like definitely in the back of my mind, it's always like I think for me, there was that goal of like, oh, getting to the majors, but then at the same time, it wasn't like an attainable goal. It was just like, I would like to play in the majors,
Yeah.
but then knowing what I know now, it's like, I definitely didn't have that mindset to get to that point. It was just like, oh, like it should be easy for me to get there. Like,
Yeah.
I guess in more context for me, like from when I was growing up, I didn't know anything about travel ball. I didn't know anything about like scout ball or anything outside of just playing with your little league team and your high school team. So again, that's why for me, I think things were different too. Social media is way different as well. Like that influences a lot. But yeah, I think for me, it was like my path was more academically oriented. I had to make sure that I got to college, get a degree. Like that was kind of more of my attainable goals. And if I can play baseball within then more the better. But yeah, that was my thing, was never to like actually obtain to the major league level, but it's like it would have been nice. But
yeah. And I think it's awesome that you still get to play today and like stay in the game. And I think my way of doing that just happens to be gloves, but it's great that you get to keep playing.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I guess for anybody that's watching as a little bit more context, I'm 31 and I just look like I'm still in high school, which is really funny for me. So that's why a lot of people will look and they'll see me now and they'll be like, oh, like that guy must be pretty good and whatnot. As a little bit of context too, and like not to toot my own horn, but I did go to a Major League Scouting Bureau tryout back when I was about like 21. And I remember going and from 8 in the morning, no, from like 7 in the morning till about 12 noon or 1 o'clock, all I did at the tryout was run the 60 and throw 3 balls from the outfield. because there were over like 400 guys trying out. And so
Holy
they had
cow.
to like get everybody's like, numbers down and whatnot. But just from running my 60 and throwing those 3 balls, I remember legitimately there were 2 or 3 scouts that came up to me and they're like, "Hey, how old are you?" And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, "I'm 21." And they're like, "Oh, fuck, you're too old." And I was like, "Oh, damn." I was like, "Dude, what if I had like told them I was like 18?"
Yeah, you could have passed for 18, I bet, back then.
Yeah.
Um,
Even now, that's why I get a lot of people like and you know this about me, but it's like I coach a little bit of high school baseball as
yeah,
well, and you get a lot of people that always come up to me. They're like, "Hey, where's your coach?" And it's like,
yeah, you're looking
here.
at them.
So yeah,
Yeah, that's funny. So, kind of transitioning out of your playing career and into real life, what is something that baseball has taught you that's like a life lesson, kind of that's applicable to life itself, and not just outside
I
of in baseball?
yeah, I think if anything else, like as far as being like a team sport, definitely again teamwork, working with others, not having to like there's definitely in baseball there's an individual game with like the pitcher versus batter
Hmm.
and like there's different things or like having to rely on a fielder to make a play. Like there's certain individual things that are part of it, but as a whole, you know, like you need to work well with others. And so I think that's why for me, there's different things and that's how I kind of take things into context as well is that it's not there's not one way of doing things,
Yep.
so there's again there within baseball there's multiple. What I love about baseball is that you can be 5'6" and and be
Exactly.
able to play any position versus like in basketball or something, like if you're 5'6", like you're relegated to playing point guard or something,
Yep.
so it's one of those things where I think you can be any shape, size, or form and still succeed in
Hmm.
baseball. And so that's something that I feel like life has kind of taught me with baseball. I talking with Jay, who I'm sure we're going to talk about, plenty in this podcast, but
Yep.
something like that I had always brought into my life was like, oh, life is just like baseball, and
Hmm.
in some senses, like I kind of still believe it, but where there's things that you can control and you can't control,
Hmm.
so think like what I try to tell kids that I coach to is that, you know, when somebody's pitching you a ball, you have no control of where that ball's coming, but
Yep.
you have control over like how your mechanics are and like, how, you practice and whatnot.
Hmm.
So there's things like that versus I know Jay, says too that like life is not a literal
Yep.
reflection of baseball. So, there's different viewpoints, but again, that's what I feel like baseball taught me. So
Yeah, that's an awesome one. So now you're doing filming for like minor leaguers and prospects. So, kind of how'd you get into filming and that stuff in the first place? And like, what made you want to start filming and make YouTube videos and stuff like that?
yeah, so for me, yeah, it was always like filming has always been like a hobby of mine.
Hmm.
Um, Definitely been doing it since high school. I actually since middle school I've really been doing some film stuff on the side, but it wasn't until like high school that like I started doing it a little bit more. I went to the Rhode Island School of Design for a pre-college program one of my summers to learn film and a little bit more about art and stuff,
Sweet.
and that's where I really got to learn and develop the video editing skills that like have today. That's really the only formal training I've ever had with video editing, though. And from then on, I would say throughout college, just like messing around with stuff, like,
Yeah.
just doing some things here and there. But it wasn't until the end of college for me in 2011, working with some other YouTube groups, Wong Fu Productions and JK Films, where I got to know them as fans because of seeing them on YouTube and
Hmm.
seeing what they've done. And that's like a whole another side thing of like the Asian American community within YouTube. But being fans with them and then knowing that they actually live near where I live. And
Yeah.
long story short, I did a music video or lip sync video. It's still out on YouTube
Hmm.
somewhere. Is I did a lip sync video and I sent it to them, and they were like, "Hey, did you edit this?" And I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "All right, we'll finish up school and we have an internship for you."
Oh, that's
And it was
awesome.
just like, yeah. And I was like, whoa, okay. So I learned a ton from both of those guys. I worked with them for about 2 years, um, and just doing behind the scenes editing and whatnot. And yeah, that's been my thing. And so I've always done stuff on the side with like video ever
Hmm.
since then. But to where I am today, literally, it started this year in 2020. Like, that's what I tell people is like the quarantine and whatnot has been kind of a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
Because for me, I started doing some late night lives with, just going on from anywhere from like 11 at night to like 4 or 5 in the morning, just
Yep.
on IG, just, talking to people, filling out the vibes, just, spreading positivity any way I could.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody that I know, Chris from AZ Glove Lab, he messaged me and one of my lives, he's like, hey, did you see Nolan Gorman's IG story? And to be honest, I didn't know who the heck Nolan Gorman was at the time. And
Yep.
it's like, I just typed in his name. It's like, oh, like he's the number 2 prospect in the,
Holy
St. Louis
cow.
Cardinals organization. And on his IG live, it said, hey, I'm looking for a videographer in the Phoenix area. And I was
Wow.
like, okay, like I'm just gonna cold DM him. Like, I'm not following him or anything. Like, I'll just
Yep.
cold DM him to be like, hey, like I'm a videographer. Like, can I help you with anything? And he messaged me the next morning, and he was like, hey, yeah, can you come out to help us tomorrow? Which that was on a Wednesday, so he was referring to Thursday.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh. And for me, I was like, okay, I messaged him for sure in the first sentence saying like, I'm from Los Angeles,
Yeah.
and he's looking for somebody in Phoenix, Arizona.
That's a haul.
And yeah, exactly.
For
And
one
so then I
day,
was like,
especially.
yeah. And so for me, I was like, all right, you know what? Like, I'm literally not doing anything. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, screw it. Like, I'm gonna make that drive and go meet these guys. And I had no idea who was gonna be there,
Yeah.
except for him. And long story short, with that, filmed everything, kind of mic'd them up. We really had no direction of what we were going. Literally, I showed up and I asked Nolan. I was like, so what do you need me to do? And he's like, you can mic us up if you want. And I was like, okay.
Sure.
And I happen to have a GoPro that I set up behind the catchers, and then I just used my my handheld camera, and I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna try and film different angles. Like, I really don't know what we're trying to capture.
Yeah.
A little bit of influence from Momentum and Trevor Bauer and their
Yeah.
live stats that they had been doing, but I was just like, okay, maybe I'll try and get some of that. But I was like, I have no idea who any of these guys are. Like, I don't know if they're comfortable with talking, and lo and behold, I think because these guys, to just name off a couple of guys, not Adam Libertor, but his best friend, Matthew Libertor, who was drafted by the Rays, but now he's with the St. Louis Cardinals. Him and Nolan are like best friends.
Okay.
Zach McKinstry from the Dodgers, Sam Huff from the Texas Rangers, Quinn Cotton from the Cincinnati Reds. These guys are all like top prospects in their organization. But like, again, I didn't know who they were at the time.
Yeah.
But finding out later, like, yeah, I guess these guys all work out together. So they had the camaraderie and whatnot. And
Yeah.
I was able to put up like 4 episodes from them just like doing live at bats and just like them jawing off with each other. And it was it was hilarious. So.
That behind the stuff scenes is like, you don't get to see that anywhere. Like, unless you get a little bit from like Trevor Bauer, as you said, and like some of the Dodgers stuff, Dodgers YouTube channel, but like that's not just out in the open. So that stuff's really cool to see.
Yeah, no,
And
I like it just because, again, I think to me, which not only for my own work, but I think for a lot of these guys, they were able to expand on their social media, whatnot. It lets you see these guys as more than just baseball players. You get to see the personal side of them,
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of baseball is missing. So it's good to have that, and that players want that. Like, they're reaching out to you guys, trying to find videographers because they want it. And I think that's a lot of what social media has done, because these players are young, they're new to the game, and they realize that like social media is a real thing and it's not going away. So like, you might as well use it to your advantage.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's why too is like, to kind of continue that story just a little bit, was like the very next day when I told Nolan I was back in LA, he's like, oh shoot, like let me get you in contact with my my agent, because he's in Los Angeles. He's like, I didn't know you were from Los Angeles. And so from then, ever since then, from June all the way till beginning of October, I had literally done almost every week with guys that got drafted in this year's draft, bunch of minor league guys, bunch of major league guys, just before they all went off to their camps and before their season started. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome. And you have some of those guys on the wall behind you with their baseball cards, don't you?
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, if anybody's watching, for the YouTube video or whatnot, if this is on YouTube
Yeah.
So that was the whole thing was, back in April, one of my friends got me into baseball cards and I was just like, dude, like, fine, like, I'll just, get into that and whatnot. And then I didn't know what I was going to do with any of the cards. Cause I was like, most of them are just going to lie around in my room. And so then when June hit and I started working with these guys, I was like, it'd be a perfect thing to get a lot of these guys in their baseball cards, because a lot of these guys are top prospects, so they have baseball cards. And so that's pretty much what you see from, I think, the second to like the fourth or fifth row. Those are all guys that I've worked with. And
Dang.
so, yeah. And so like the last three are kind of like, one row is like all Dodgers because I'm a Dodgers fan.
Yeah.
The last two are kind of like just ones that I really like of players, just from collecting them. And then the top row is like some graded cards and whatnot, but of some top rookies. But other than that, yeah, like there's 4 or 5 rows of guys that I've actually worked with. So
that's awesome. So you kind of talked about how like all this quarantine stuff and like how COVID was actually like a blessing, and I would agree with that because like my college is online and like I'm staying at home, and that allows me to like have all this stuff here that I like couldn't fit any of this stuff in a dorm, and I get to like have so much more time to make YouTube videos. And like I got to travel to Georgia, which like if I was actually going to school, like none of that stuff could have happened. So you kind of have to be smart about it and take make the best of your opportunities. So I'm glad to see that you got to do that, and it seems some really cool stuff for the future that you'll just be able to keep building on. So that's awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm hoping that, because for me, I was definitely at a crossroad before this whole thing happened with I had gotten my teaching credential. I've been coaching high school ball. Like I just thought, okay, I'm just gonna kind of just go into that route. It's safe. And I enjoy it though. Like, don't get me wrong. Like that's the reason why I did it, but the videography thing has always been on the back of my mind. And then being able to do all this, I've slowed down just a little bit, but especially with the stuff that's been on my Instagram, if anybody checks that out, it's like, it's just been a bunch of hype videos of these players. And it's not necessarily been like to promote anybody per se, but it's just kind of just to like show them off in a sense. And it's been really cool because I've gotten like a handful of companies that have been contacting me. They're like, hey, like, can you do something with our brand, or like, just do like a little video for us and whatnot. So I'm like, wow, like to see that those little things are starting to build up. It's hasn't paid off enough per se to like, for me to say jump full ship into it, but it's getting there. So
yeah, it's cool to see, because you said you've been doing this for like 10 years or something. So it's good to see, like if you actually just like be patient with something, it'll pay off. And it's fun to see you go through that and have it pay off for you and get to actually do what you really enjoy. So
yeah, no, definitely.
So talking about that, you've gotten to have some pretty cool opportunities with all the filming and stuff that you're doing. You've worked with Baseballogists before, going to ABCA, getting some travel opportunities. So what are some of your favorite like baseball memories? Since you kind of have a different lifestyle now with some of the baseball stuff. So what have been some cool things that you've gotten to do?
I mean, I know that there's definitely more stuff out there. This year alone has definitely been like a big memory, and it's kind of just surreal that it's happened, and being able to work with the guys that I've worked with. But yeah, like working with the Basebalologist, I worked with him for about a year or so, doing a lot of his videos. So shout out to him.
Yep.
And just it's been cool to help grow his brand and help him expand and see the ways that he's expanding the game, from like a fan perspective per se, but just his experience as a player and coach too, so. But for me, yeah, it's just been a culmination of things. For me, I don't think that there's any one particular memory as far as like what I've been doing with all this. It's just having that opportunity to work with guys like him and all of these guys, just to be able to again, just work with them and know
Yep.
that like I can help them in a way that, they don't have, that skill set, and for me to have that baseball background as well, to be able to know what types of angles to get, and,
Yep.
and knowing what is actually cool within something that may be like completely mundane,
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm jealous of you getting to go to ABCA because I was looking forward to it this year. Probably not going to go, but just being able to see it now, it's virtual. So, going off that, I know you got a few gloves from there. Got to meet some glove guys at ABCA, and you have a decent collection yourself, I would like to say, and especially some new ones. And you've had some awesome glove videos on YouTube. So I've gotten to like those. So of your gloves, which I think I might be able to guess which one, but which are your favorite, and what's one that you want to get in the future?
Well, I don't know. I would say, like, with all the gloves that I have, you know,
Tough
probably
question.
I know, yeah. My white one with the K logo on it, that the custom K logo on it, is probably my favorite. I wish that it was like at a higher quality, in a sense. Like, the leather on it is not that great. It's still a good glove, but it's not that great. But the fact that the way it was customized, and the fact that I literally had drawn up the web to be a K,
Yep.
and for them to like literally make that a physical thing, like that was really cool. That's probably my favorite glove.
Is that one a 44?
No, that
Or is
one's
that
a Chronos. Yeah,
okay? Yeah,
yeah.
because I knew you had two.
I did get one from 44, but that's the one that like I'm hesitant on. It looks more like
Okay.
an X than a K. So
Okay, yeah. And you have your eye on any new ones? I saw you just got the new Mookie Betts one. That one's sick.
yeah, so that one's sitting up on my computer speaker right now. But yeah, that's
Yep.
the one that, I mean, I knew from spring training, ever since the Dodgers got Mookie Betts and they revealed that in spring training. I was like, if Wilson comes out with that glove, like, I'm for sure getting that
You got to
glove.
get it.
And yeah, and so I mean, that was one I knew for sure I was gonna get. With the whole pandemic going on, I remember when Cody Bellinger's glove went up as a Game Day 57 series glove from Rawlings. I was like, it's Cody Bellinger. Like, he just won MVP in 2019. Like,
Yep.
might as well. It's a really nice looking glove, especially with the suede on the back. Like, it's just different. But as far as gloves that I'm looking forward to, I don't know. Like, I did get we were talking about Jay earlier, and his whole thing with helping Sam Fold and Slam T1D.
Yep.
So I did purchase the V4, or the version 4, which is like an outfield model. It's a trapeze web with a conventional back, and so that's something I'm excited to get.
When are those projected to come in?
I'm actually not sure when it's projected, but I was just like, you know what, like I want to help them. And again, Jay's whole thing with Operation Sandlot, I just want to expand on that, and whatnot. So it's like, I'm not worried about when I'm gonna get it, but it's one of those things that's like, I'm definitely looking forward to getting it. But other than that, I don't know. There's not really any particular glove or player that I would say like I'm like dying to get right now. I think it's just a matter of like what makes it different, it's whatnot. But I will say there is one glove, and this isn't really breaking news, but I haven't announced it to anybody.
Okay.
But it's like an exclusive for you too. Is Athletes brand and Laser Pro Sports has that ice cream glove.
Yep.
And so they had contacted me about doing a video with them, and so they're sending me one. So I'm excited to get that one, and I'm hoping it comes in soon. But I know that they've had some quality control, not issues, but they're like making sure that their glove like comes out top quality. So.
Yeah, for sure. You talked about Jay a little bit. So can you tell us a little bit about the glove that he sent you, and kind of what that's all about?
Yeah, actually, you see, I wish he had told me to line up my gloves, but that glove's in my playing bag right now because I played a couple of weekends ago.
Okay.
But it's a Rawlings Pro 303, and if anybody goes to my YouTube channel, you'll see it. But it's a Rawlings Pro 303, blue primarily throughout, with a little bit of white as accents and then some red stitching. And so the whole kind of story behind that was, meeting Jay at ABCA in Nashville. We're all hanging out, and it's like I'd known Jay for a little bit from online discussions and whatnot, and literally out of the blue, like he just tells me, he's like, "Hey, so Kevin, what glove are you looking to get next?" And I was like, "I don't know." Like at the time, I was looking at maybe getting a Rawlings, because I really hadn't had a Rawlings glove. The only Rawlings glove I had at the time was I had my very first glove was a Rawlings, but it was like the Derek Jeter turn 2 model. It wasn't like a Heart of the Hide and whatnot, but that was what I used throughout Little League. And then the infield model I have is was like the first color sync glove. It's a 31 pattern infield. And anyways, I told him, I was like, I really haven't had a good experience with Rawlings yet. And so he goes, "All right, well, after ABC is done, like, let's get in contact. I want you to just design one and I'm gonna get it for you."
That's awesome.
And I was like, what the heck? Like, who does that? And I've told him the story too. I was like, who just says I'm gonna get you a glove? And so come to find out, it wasn't like most kindest person you'll ever meet, and will answer any question you have about gloves. And he's a saint on his own, even though he'll probably deny it to anybody. But the fact that it wasn't just like, I'm just gonna give you a glove, it's like you're on the hook for his online spreading positivity motion and Operation Sandlot. And so for me, it was like, I didn't want to take advantage of that. I didn't want to say like, oh, like I'm getting a free glove if I just like donate like something to, some company. It's like, for me, I didn't tell him this either. I was like, I wanted to take it one step further. So, I took the concept of Pay It Forward, the movie, and knowing that, from one positive movement, you spread it out to 3 people that you choose, and hopefully they spread it out to 3 people, and it just spreads, virally. And I think that in a sense is kind of what he's trying to go for, but it's more of like, he's picking out one person at a time. And so for me, I took it again, just to that one step forward. And so there were 3 coaches that I chose that inspired me, but knowing that they have stories of their own, of their struggles and, what they've done for their communities and whatnot. So I wanted to give back to them. And I know that they continue to pay it forward from, here on out without me having to ask them to. But, it was just my way of saying thank you to them. And that's so, awesome. Knowing that how much they contribute to their communities. So that was my whole thing with Jay and getting that glove. So.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the coolest people in the glove community. And like, you couldn't ask for anyone better, because he's kind of the voice of the community. You have any questions, you go to Jay. You are looking for a glove, you go to Jay. Like anything, it's just he's like the guy. So you wouldn't want anyone better than him. So
absolutely.
Something cool to be a part of, and something that I want to take part of in the future. You're talking about Rawlings a little bit, and I actually got my first one today, right there. So you're the first person to see it, but flashy.
The hyper shell or the speed shell on the back?
Speed shell, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So I haven't had many. You said you hadn't had many good things with Rawlings, but I hadn't had any. So I tried out, and I had a few, but I just sold them. So it's the first one to keep, and I'm liking it so far. So.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like, I've never had a brand loyalty, to certain things. Everybody's always like, with the big 2 of Wilson and Rawlings, like, oh, which one are you? Which one are you? And it's like, I know again that, you tend to go towards Wilson, but it's not like you're a Wilson guy.
Yeah.
For me, it was the other way around, where I was getting better experience from some Rawlings gloves that I was helping to break in, or just like, again, with the Bellinger that I got, I bought a Mike Trout MT27. Again, the Pro 31 pattern that I have, I just love them. But even over the years, I had actually had more Wilsons that I had acquired, but
Yep.
I just didn't like them for some reason. And, so I sold those off to kids that needed them more than me.
Yeah.
But, it was just one of those things where I was like, like I won't tell somebody like flat out, oh, you have to get Rawlings over Wilson. It's like you have to find your preference. Again, for me, it's like when I look at the Mookie, I'm like, oh, that's the only down thing is that it's a Wilson. But it's like, it's not. It's like he chooses Wilson for a reason, and I'm not gonna have any gripes about that.
Yeah, I talked about this a lot in my last episode, which basically like it's like a rivalry, and there's no wrong answer. Like you find what works for you, and the thing is like I found one model and one design that I like, and that's the 1786, and that just is what worked for me. And like I've like 4 of them right there, but I just happen to find more Wilsons that I like, so that's just what I stuck with. And nothing against Rawlings, but and I'm glad I finally found one that I like, and a pattern and a design that I like. And like they're not cheap, so it's not like you can just go out and try everything.
Yeah.
So it's taken a while, but I'm glad I'm finally getting like dipping my toes in more brands and getting more knowledgeable in this stuff, because now I'm trying to be an educator and stuff like this, and it makes me more credible knowing and actually like feeling these gloves and having them.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's too, it's like where some people, it's like, you can be a Wilson guy for all I care, but, don't just bash another company just because like, like, especially if you're uninformed with that brand, so it's just being, for me, it's definitely just being more informed with like the stuff that I like, and then just telling people what I like about it, but also telling them what I don't like about it,
Yeah, exactly. Because no brand, no matter what, is going to be perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's everything from, you can take anything good from one brand, and then you just tell people maybe what are the pros and cons, and that's all you can do. Because at the end of the day, it's not your glove, it's their glove. So
yeah.
Last question is a hypothetical question. There's a lot going on with baseball. Congrats to your Dodgers winning the World Series. After this crazy year, let's say hypothetically Rob Manfred gets fired and Kevin Chan is the commissioner. What is the first thing that you change about baseball?
Was it you that came into my live the other night, or somebody came into my live the other night and literally asked this question? Was it's like, if you were a commissioner, what would you change about baseball? I was just like, dude, I don't know. Like, I don't have a thing that I would really say firmly that I would change about baseball.
Maybe not the game as much, but like the culture of baseball or something like that.
I mean, the flat out answer with that would just be more of like, letting the players be more expressive and allowing them to, to do more of the social media, to be mic'd up more. Like, granted, this year alone was kind of like, they went from like not doing any of it to all of a sudden like they're in the middle of games in like mic'd the middle crucial situations of being mic'd up. It's like, like, what are you doing? Like, this is not, I can understand it during an all-star game or spring training and whatnot. But the literally in the middle of the game,
elimination games, it was crazy. But I think they'll find the balance of it, and it'll be good.
Yeah. So if anything else, again, I think it's just be more like, vlogs, day in the life, like before, like what they do. I think you definitely see a lot more colleges starting to do that too.
Yeah.
That's a whole separate thing because they're different entities and whatnot. But like with MLB, just seeing, I know people, don't like what Trevor Bauer's doing, but at the same time, it's like what he's doing hasn't been done per se. It's like, I know Alex Bregman had done it for a while there. And then he kind of just dropped off and stopped doing it. So it's one of those things where I think, one, it's tough to create consistency out of it because you might get, like, I definitely don't want to force any of it for anybody. It's like, oh, like, hey, tomorrow you have to do this day in the life, because then you might not get quality content out of these guys. But it's like just guys that want to do it. At the same time, it's not, again, just trying not to force guys to do it, because you might get guys that are a little bit more quiet who,
Hmm.
you know, you may not get a ton out of either, you know. So it's, again, yeah, it's just finding that balance and just trying to, you know, to figure out what's good and whatnot. But I think that's what I'm trying to do is at the same time,
Hmm.
like I wanted to mic up some of the guys,
Yeah.
you know, during our live at bats, but at the same time, it's like these guys are here to work, you know, so
Yeah.
they're probably not going to say a lot of stuff. So that's why like I wanted to do more hype videos for them, because it was like, okay, like that doesn't require sound, it just requires music and getting good shots. So
Yeah. Well, it's cool for you and it's awesome because I think as people see what Trevor is doing and more players are going to be attracted to that, and I think 162 games is going to take a toll on you no matter what,
hmm
and especially to perform the way that you have to do. And I don't know how Trevor Bauer did it. Maybe it's because of the 60 game season and I don't know if he could sustain that, but I think you're in a great spot to where these guys are seeing it happen. They know it works and that you can do that for them and just take that relief off of them to where all they have to worry about is playing and you can just get all that content for them and help them build that. So I'm really excited for the future for that.
yeah, no, that's I think that's the other thing too, is then there's like a semi shortage of people that are available, or again, I think it's also MLB not hiring people or teams not hiring people
Mm-hmm.
to grab that content. But again, I think there's that fine line of like, you know, a player's privacy and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. For
I
sure.
think which was really funny is I was hearing on Ross Stripling's podcast, and which I'm sure a lot of people don't know this, which is Corey Seager was playing Call of Duty with Ross Stripling and like a bunch of guys before Game 6. Like they were up till like late night before Game 6 of the World Series, and it was just
That's
like, you know, to know that now, it's like I'm
yeah.
sure there's a ton of people that if they found out like at the time, they'd give him a ton of backlash for like, why are you like doing
Yeah.
this? And it's like again, these guys are humans. Like they have lives outside of baseball, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's one of those things where I think, you know, just it's fun to see all this, and I think that there definitely should be more of it, but there is that balance of like, you know, I think there needs to, um, you know, be a fine line, and so I think
For
for
sure.
certain guys to take it, or MLB to allow certain guys to take it into their own hands to brand themselves to
Yeah.
do stuff like what Momentum's doing and whatnot, you know. So if they choose to do it, then they should allow them to do it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we're like, I think it'd be cool if, yeah, you mic up somebody and they're getting off the bus, like, you know, it's like, hey, so what are you wearing today? You know, it's like,
Yeah.
you know, just I don't know, it's one of those things. Just yeah.
Yeah. It's funny what you say about Corey Seager and them playing Call of Duty because, like, I'm sure some people would give them backlash, but like as a fan myself, I would want to see them like stream it, like put it on
Oh
Twitch and let
yeah.
me like watch y'all just have those regular conversations that like all of us like play video games and Call of Duty. Like that's such a normal thing, and you don't think of these players as people. Like they
hmm
only see them on the field as products. So it's like I would love to see them play Call of Duty on stuff like that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think there's only what a handful of guys that even do it. I think Blake Snell does stream on his
Yeah.
own, right? Okay, yeah. See, so then like, you know, and then even before the whole thing, the whole season started, like they had them play MLB The Show, right? You know,
Yeah,
it's
I think
like,
the extended offseason did a big part of that with
yeah,
like Joey Gallo and all them playing the show. So
yeah.
that was cool to see. Um
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, as far as, you know, going to your original question of like, yeah, what would I change? You know, I that would be the flat out answer for me is, yeah, just allowing more access to these guys' lives. But at the same
yeah.
time, it's like I understand that, you know, there needs to be personal
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
So
It's
I don't,
all with
and
the
then
intention of growing the game.
yeah, no, exactly. So I think my only answer, because just thinking about it, is like to change the game in and of itself is I've always been a proponent for like the National League of like not having a universal DH, but
Okay.
part of this is as a Dodger fan, but at the same time is like just seeing and hearing of how things have been going is just with having that extra DH in the National League, like that opens up so many more jobs, like what 15 more jobs for guys, you know,
Yeah.
to be able to be a DH instead of having to only rely on the National League. But I think too, like it creates more offense. Again, I was for sure against having the DH in the National League,
Mm-hmm.
just because I think it's more strategy with the double switches and whatnot. But I mean, you can see it from how the Dodgers played the World Series, and again, it's being biased, but it's also
Yeah.
not. Like any baseball fan could watch how the Dodgers played the World Series. Is that they didn't just have a set DH. They did their thing with AJ Pollock and Jock Peterson,
Yeah.
and switching them off with righty lefties. So I think there's still a strategy within it. But yeah, that'd be my only thing, is to possibly keep the DH going forward. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's a good stopping point for us. And I've loved having you on. Why don't you plug all your channels and stuff like that?
I guess, yeah, just plugging myself in. Everything on social media for me is Chanterprise, Chanterprise. Yeah, you can catch me on. I've been a little bit more active on Twitter, but not as active. Instagram is where I'm most active,
Mm-hmm.
and YouTube. I do have a Facebook. It's pretty much just the extension of YouTube and Instagram for me. But yeah, where you'll see most of my activity will be Instagram and YouTube. So that's, yeah, it's just, yeah, Chanterprise all across the board. So.
Yep. All right. Well,
even TikTok, but I don't have too much. I don't do too much of that as much as you do.
oh, no, all good. You have a good following on there.
I have a decent following. It's completely fallen off now.
All good. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and glad to have you.
No, thank you, Sean. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, you got it. All right, I'll see you, Kev.
All right, thanks, man.
Yep.